Long before the pyramids rose from the sands of Egypt, before Athens dreamed of democracy or Rome imagined empire, an ancient civilization guarded a version of humanity's earliest memory, one so old, so mysterious, that it would later be dismissed as myth by some and feared as forbidden truth by others. Hidden in the highlands of Ethiopia, preserved in a language older than Latin and Greek, lies a biblical tradition that tells the story of the world before the flood with startling detail. This is not a fantasy. It is a historical, textual, and cultural legacy that still exists today. And its implications challenge everything modern audiences think they know about early human history. Thousands of years ago, in what the Ethiopian Orthodox Church calls the First World Age, humanity lived in a reality profoundly different from our own. According to the Ethiopian Bible, particularly texts preserved in Giyas, such as the Book of Enoch, Jubilees, and ancient commentaries on Genesis, the earth before the flood was technologically primitive yet spiritually complex, biologically altered, and cosmically connected. This tradition did not vanish with time. It survived invasions, religious suppression, colonial rule, and modern skepticism, remaining alive in Ethiopia when the rest of the world forgot. Unlike the Western biblical canon, the Ethiopian Bible contains 81 books, making it the oldest and most complete biblical collection still in use. Among these texts is the Book of Enoch, a work once quoted by early Christians, referenced in the New Testament, and then mysteriously removed from most biblical traditions. Ethiopia never removed it. As a result, Ethiopian Christianity preserved a continuous narrative of the antediluvian world, the world before Noah's flood, that reads less like folklore and more like a lost historical record. According to these texts, the pre-flood world was not merely sinful, it was structurally corrupted. Humanity, once created in harmony with divine law, began to diverge dramatically after the arrival of the Watchers, a group of angelic beings sent to observe humankind. Instead of remaining neutral, these watchers intervened. They taught forbidden knowledge, metallurgy, weapon-making, astrology, advanced mathematics, cosmetics, and occult sciences. This was not progress as we understand it. It was a violation of cosmic boundaries. The Ethiopian Book of Enoch names these beings individually, describing their hierarchy, motivations, and punishments. Their leader, Semjaza, along with others like Azazel, took human wives and produced hybrid offspring known as the Nephilim. These beings were described as giants, not only in size but in appetite, power, and violence. They consumed crops, livestock, and eventually human beings themselves. Violence spread across the earth not as isolated wars, but as systemic collapse. What makes the Ethiopian account astonishing is its specificity. It describes environmental destruction, atmospheric imbalance, and moral decay as interconnected phenomena. According to the text, the Nephilim's existence disrupted nature itself. Seasons became unstable, animals behaved unnaturally, human lifespan, once extending hundreds of years, began to shorten. The flood, in this narrative, was not an arbitrary punishment, it was a cosmic reset, a necessary act to preserve creation itself. From a modern perspective, these descriptions raise unsettling questions. Ancient myths from Mesopotamia, Sumer, Akkad, and even Native American traditions also speak of giants, sky beings, and a great flood. The Epic of Gilgamesh, written thousands of years before the Bible was compiled, tells a strikingly similar flood story. What sets Ethiopia apart is continuity. While other cultures preserved fragments, Ethiopia preserved a living tradition. Archaeology adds another layer to the mystery. Ethiopia is home to some of the oldest human remains ever discovered, including Lucy, Australopithecus afarensis, dating back over 3 million years. Genetic studies suggest Ethiopia as one of humanity's original homelands. This raises a provocative question. If early human memory survived anywhere, why not here? The Ethiopian tradition claims that before the flood, humanity was unified, not by nation or race, but by language and spiritual awareness. Cities existed, but they were not like modern cities. They were ritual centers aligned with celestial cycles. Knowledge was transmitted orally and ritually, not through mass writing. This is why the flood erased so much. When oral cultures collapse, memory vanishes quickly. Yet some memories survived. According to Ethiopian lore, Enoch, a righteous man who walked with God, was taken alive into the heavens. His writings, dictated by angelic beings, became a warning to future generations. These texts describe not only the corruption of the pre-flood world, but visions of future ages, including ours. Enoch speaks of an era where knowledge would increase rapidly, where humanity would rediscover ancient truths but misunderstand them, and where arrogance would replace wisdom. For many modern readers, these passages feel disturbingly familiar. The flood itself, as described in Ethiopian texts, was global but not instantaneous. It began with seismic upheaval, the fountains of the deep breaking open. Mountains shifted, oceans swallowed coastlines. Rain fell not as storms, but as sustained atmospheric collapse. The ark, built by Noah according to divine instruction, was not merely a boat, it was a preservation vessel, a biological archive designed to restart life. Interestingly, Ethiopian tradition emphasizes that Noah was not chosen randomly, he was genetically uncorrupted, untainted by Nephilim lineage. This detail echoes concerns found in the Book of Enoch and Jubilees about bloodlines and biological purity, concepts that modern audiences often find uncomfortable, but which ancient cultures discussed openly. In this framework, the flood was not just about morality, but about preserving humanity as humanity. After the waters receded, the world was changed forever. Lifespans shortened drastically, direct communication with divine beings ceased, humanity entered what Ethiopian theology calls the Second World Age, an era of distance, memory, and struggle. Yet Ethiopia claims a special role in this new world. According to the Kebra Nagast, Ethiopia's national epic, the Ark of the Covenant itself eventually came to rest in Aksum, carried by Menelik I, the son of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. Whether literal or symbolic, this claim underscores Ethiopia's self-understanding as a guardian of primordial truth. For American audiences, this story challenges familiar assumptions. The Bible most Americans know is a product of councils, empires, and selective canonization. The Ethiopian Bible represents an alternative lineage, one that developed largely outside Roman control. It invites readers to ask, what was left out and why? Modern scholars once dismissed the Book of Enoch as pseudepigraphal fantasy. That changed dramatically in 1947 when the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered. Among them were fragments of Enoch in Hebrew and Aramaic, proving that the text was ancient, respected, and widely circulated during the time of Jesus. Suddenly, Ethiopia's outlier tradition became a missing puzzle piece. Even today, Ethiopian priests chant these texts in Ge'ez, a liturgical language no longer spoken conversationally, but preserved with astonishing precision. Manuscripts are hand-copied using techniques unchanged for centuries. This is not reconstructed history, it is continuous history. The world before the flood, as preserved by Ethiopia, is not presented as a golden age. It was an age of brilliance and disaster, of knowledge without wisdom. The lesson is clear and deeply relevant. Technological advancement divorced from ethical restraint leads not to salvation, but to collapse. For a 21st century audience facing climate instability, artificial intelligence, and moral fragmentation, this ancient warning feels less like mythology and more like prophecy. In the end, the Ethiopian version of the pre-flood world forces a profound reconsideration of human origins. It suggests that civilization has risen and fallen before, that memory is fragile, and that history is not always linear progress. Sometimes it is survival. And perhaps the most unsettling idea of all is this: if one ancient culture preserved such detailed memories while the rest of the world forgot, what else might still be hidden in plain sight, waiting for us to listen? The world before the flood may be gone, but its echoes remain, and through the Ethiopian Bible, those echoes still speak.